What if I told you that one of the most basic things you learned in math class is actually a secret weapon for making way smarter decisions in your everyday life? Well, today, we're going to unlock the surprising power of the average and show you how understanding it can help you see the world a whole lot more clearly.
So let's kick things off with a story. Meet Dan. He's a barber, and he's just been offered a massive opportunity, the chance to rent his very own chair in a super busy salon. I mean, this is the dream, right? It's the big career move he's been waiting for. But it also comes with some pretty serious financial risk.
And this is the question that's just eating him up inside. If he gets this right, it's an absolute game changer. But if he gets it wrong, he could end up losing a ton of money. You see, this entire decision, it really just boils down to the numbers.
And here we go, this is the first big number he's got to worry about. 130 pounds. That's what the chair costs him to rent every single week. It's his biggest fixed cost, a hurdle he has to jump over week after week just to break even. And as we're about to see, it is definitely not the only one.
Okay, so let's really dive into this. Before Dan can even start dreaming about profits, he needs an absolutely crystal clear picture of all his expenses. It's time to do the math.
Right, first up, we've got that chair rent at 130 quid, easy enough. Next, he figured out his average weekly spend on stuff like gels, sprays, you know the deal. That came to about £11.09. And finally, you've got those bigger one-off costs. Think insurance, business cards. Now, instead of taking that hit all at once, he did something really smart. He spread them out over the whole year, which adds just £4.42 to his weekly total.
And that brings us to the grand total. Every single week, Dan needs to pull in £145.51. And that's just to cover his basic costs. That's his break-even point before he even pays himself a single penny. So, okay, the cost side of things is clear. Now for the really tricky part, figuring out the income.
So, to figure out if he can actually make any money, Dan has to estimate what he'll earn each week. And to do that, he needs to know what an average client spends. But here's the thing, and as we're about to find out, that word, average, can be incredibly deceptive. This right here is the big question. I mean, for Dan, it's the 145-pound question, right? The answer is going to decide whether this whole new venture is a massive success or a total failure. And to find that answer, we need to get our heads around two very different ways of looking at average.
First up, we've got the mean. Now, this is what pretty much all of us think of when we hear the word average. It's simple. You just add up all your numbers, say what each customer spent, and then you divide that total by the number of customers you had. Seems straightforward, doesn't it?
But then you have the median. Now this is different. To find the median, you've got to line up all your values in order, from the smallest to the largest. The median is simply the number that sits smack dab in the middle of that list. It represents the typical value, not just the mathematical one.
And hey, if you have trouble remembering that, check out this little rhyme. Hey diddle diddle, the median's the middle. You add and divide for the mean. It's kind of silly, but it's a great way to keep them straight. So why does this tiny difference matter so much?
Well, when would you use one over the other? Let's look at a super quick example to see how picking the wrong kind of average can lead you to a completely wrong conclusion. Okay, check out these cricket scores. We've got a few players here, and our job is to pick the best, most reliable batter for our team. But just kind of glancing at the numbers, it's not obvious who that is it?
So let's use the tool we all know and love, the mean average. If we calculate the mean score for each player, who comes out on top?
And the winner is Andy, with a mean score of 45. It's not even close. So, based on this number, you'd probably sign him to the team immediately. Case closed, right? Well, hold on a second. That number is hiding a really crucial part of the story.
See, here's the problem. It all comes down to a single game where he scored a massive 112 runs. This one unusually high score, what a statistician would call an outlier, it skews his entire average way up. It makes him look a lot more consistent than he actually is.
Now just look at this comparison. Andy's mean is 45, sure, but his median, his typical score, is only 32.5. Now look at Tim. His mean is a little bit lower at 39.75, but his median is almost exactly the same at 39. What does this tell us? It tells us Tim is way more consistent. The median gives us a much truer picture because it basically ignores that one crazy outlier score from Andy.
And this, right here, is why the median is so powerful. It ignores those extreme highs and lows and gives you a much more realistic picture of a typical situation. So let's take this little insight back to our friend Dan the barber.
Dan knows that some of his clients might spend a whole lot on extra products, while others might just get a quick, cheap trim. So to stop those outliers from messing up his forecast, he wisely calculates the median spend per client. And that gives him a much more reliable, much more trustworthy figure, £12.
And now he can finally put it all together. First, he adds his weekly costs of £145.51 to the $330 he wants to earn for his own wages. That gives him a total of £475.51 that he needs to make each week. Then, he divides that by his median client spend of £12 each, which gives him $39.625.
Of course, you can't have 0.625 of a client, so he just rounds up. And there it is, 40. A clear, realistic, and trustworthy target. Dan needs to see 40 clients a week to make this whole thing work. And all of a sudden, this big, scary problem, it doesn't seem so scary anymore. It's just a number.
And because he took the time to actually understand the story behind the numbers, Dan can make his decision with total confidence. He knows his target is achievable in a busy salon like that one, so he's going for it. He's taken the leap. Good for him!
And that really brings us to the big takeaway for all of us. Whether you're looking at your own business, your personal finances, or even just a news headline, you should always ask yourself, what kind of average am I actually looking at here? And more importantly, what story are these numbers really telling me? The answer might just surprise you.